Good evening and welcome to TalkSports, our weekly program where we discuss sports, where we speak with the movers and shakers in sports, the sportsmen, sportswomen, sports administrators, coaches, just about everyone. But tonight is an open discussion where we hear from you, the public, from folks as to what it is on their minds regarding sports, as indicated in my introduction and my promotions. That we into now an election season, and we're hearing all sorts of things, the jam and wine, you know. But unfortunately, we have not been hearing much about sports as a policy statement, on sports. Um, what are the plans for the development of sports in Grenada? What can sportsmen and sportswomen look forward to regarding, a policy, a sports policy, and I was talking about in the general sense, you know, post-pandemic era, you know, what are the political parties thinking about in the event that they form a government in terms of sports? How important is sports? What is the priority in terms of sports and sports development? All these things. I'm not saying that it should only be sports, but at least we should be hearing what are your plans and programs for sports, especially as it is a key vehicle, you know, in fighting, in some instances, poverty, in eradicating poverty, in spurring economic activities, in showing that our youths are occupied. We say all sorts of things about our young people, but sports is one area that we can use to ensure that our young people are, you know, are kept in check. They are using their energies and their talents to better their lives through sports. You know, so it's an important discussion. I think we need to have, and folks will be joining me later on. And I'm just hoping that someone may have an idea of what the political parties have, what they are planning in terms of sports, and they probably just stop by and and provide some information, provide an update, give us an insight into what we can expect. But I think we should not be shortchanging our young people. It's all about who can gyrate the best and the most on stage. And it's all about a big concert and all these things. And we're not hearing the substance. We're not hearing what it is that we can expect from the authorities, from a government, from a Grenada government, I should say, you know, regarding sports. Where sports lie in terms of, priorities. Of course, health and education and agriculture and all these things do have some level of priority, I would say, in some instances over sports. But certainly sports have a role to play in the development of the country. And it's important that we hear from our, prospective politicians, those who are vying for office. What are their plans? What is the position on regarding sports? What our sportsmen, sportswomen, our coaches, whatever. What's about the national sports policy that was passed in Parliament, a few years ago, you know, and then, just nothing happened, as they will say, no implementation. I mean, what are the plans? Are there plans to resuscitate a national sports policy? There are plans to, you know, to rewrite one? What it is. We have not been hearing much, you know. I recall when the director of sports or sports coordinator, whatever it is, was on the program about a month or so ago. The question came up, and he did say that there's something in the pipeline, but that's as far as much we know. But in terms of a policy, we have not heard anything, and we still you know and the conversation stretched to the point where the folks in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I'm just using an example, attended the Curfew Games in Jamaica. And on their return, well, not, well, yeah, I should say on their return because I guess as much they waited until everyone, is back in St. Vincent. Those who won medals, gold, silver, bronze, got some sort of financial reward. And those who participated but did not win a medal also received some financial reward. So, as a matter of fact, let's just see that all the participants receive something. I mean, the argument may be that what's about the other sporting disciplines? But at least that was the character games. I'm certain probably whether it's swimming or whatever, there is something. And I think a sports policy that I know of and I participated many years ago had something called the incentives, reward and incentives, where depending on your level of participation or what you participate in, which in this case would have been the highest level would have been the Olympic Games and the World Championships. And if for some reason our footballers reach to the World Cup, I'm certain it will be to that extent as well. You get some sort of reward, whether it's character games, Commonwealth Games, CSC Games, Pan. So it depends on the level of participation. You get something. But again, I'm saying that was a policy, that was something that we were hoping that would have been implemented, but never. Um, Good evening to you, Gordon, Boy, Julian. Good evening to you, folks. So while the politicians are on stage and talking and and having a good time and things like that, so I want to stay focused on sports. I think I'm still represent the voice of our sportsmen and sportswomen to some extent, I should say. And I am will continue to be the voice of our sportsmen and sportswomen until such time. Okay. And there's another issue I want to talk about, which you know it has to do with the Grenada Football Association, um, and its yeah plans to, what should I say? Well, the elections, I should say. I shouldn't say plans. The date has been announced already for elections. So, by the way, it's not only general elections. We also have the GFA elections, and I just want to say that, folks, we need to guard against people who put themselves up for office, and I'm referring to sports, all in the name of moving sports forward. I say that because there's a tendency now of people using their positions to settle grudges. They put themselves up for office because they're upset about something and they're trying to settle grudges. And they are not serious about the development of sports, but instead to satisfy their egos. Uh, those who believe they should be the coach, there are those who believe that they should be the coach, for example, of a national team and didn't get the job, believe that someone is against them and they must run for office. Folks, no, come on. I mean, if you're serious about providing a service or running for office, it must be on good terms and not because you believe that because you didn't get the coach or you didn't get this job with football or things like that, so that you should put yourself up for office. You know, there are too many people, sadly, who occupy positions as sports administrators, and this is general now, and do not add anything to the table. I repeat, they do not add anything to the table. I could only advise affiliates of the Grenada Football Association this time that since they have an election in the coming weeks and they need to decide who are the best people or the people best suited, I should say, you know, to govern the sport for the next 4 years. Please don't be swayed by people posting endorsements on social media and things like that. These people are not on the ground. You are on the ground. You know who the people are. You know who the people who are putting themselves up for office are. What are their capabilities? You know, what they plan to do, you know. So don't be swayed by these sort of things. You are the ones going in there to decide who will govern the affairs of football for the next 4 years. And I hopeful and I trust that you'll be doing it in good faith and not by, the perception, especially on social media. You know, I am not telling you who to vote for. All I'm advising you is that you should scrutinize your candidates and show that these people who are going there with goodwill and not going there to settle scores because they probably were fired, because they didn't do a good job, because they believe that, someone was against them or some were against them, and these sorts of things. You need people there who are serious about the development of the sport. And in this case, it's football. Please, we can't be going around and around in circles. Too many people are serious jokers. We have seen it over the past few years. They get in there with all intent, and after a few months, it's all about destroying. Okay? We need people who can settle issues. You know, you have differences. I mean, we are all humans, and everyone will not be on the same, on the same length. There are times that some will be for, some will be against, but in the interest of the development of the sport, you have to move forward. Okay? And this thing about who is not talking to who and who is this, no, no, no. I mean, come on. I mean, this is not your baby. This is not your house. This is not your home. You're providing a service to our footballers, and don't treat it as if it's your personal thing. You know, please. I mean, I can say that I conceptualized and came up with the idea of the Grenada Invitational. Things did not go well. There were those who believe that, they have other ideas, and the central theme of what we wanted to achieve, which is to promote local track and field, appeared to be out the window. Folks, sent, I was sent a letter from a lawyer, a letter from a lawyer. Could you imagine? I'm the one who conceptualized, started, you know, founded the Grenada Invitational. And during the course, I was sent a letter to cease and desist from all activities regarding the Grenada Invitational. Well, in terms of that, because I believe that there were people who were in the public who could have made a contribution. May his soul rest in peace. So Royston Hopkins, for example, who had a keen interest in, promoting the Grenada Invitational. And somehow the other folks didn't agree with that. There were other people in society who wanted to be involved, and I decided that I should bring them in. And it was all about who should have control, etc. I walked away. Yeah, I didn't have to stay and fight and, go into court and battle with this and that. And I'm just saying that to say that, hey, folks, if it's football or boxing or basketball or whatever it is, and, you figure that it's not what you believe it should be, don't stay and create problems and things like that. So, you can walk away. I mean, whether there are pokes available or whatever it is like that, so that shouldn't be, you know, the central point. The central point should be really the development of the sport. And if you believe that you're not making a contribution, you're not making an effort, you're not making headway, you're not making progress, then it's easy for you to just move on. Move on. Somebody else may come in and, you know, do a better job, you know. Don't stick around and, create problems and these sorts of things. Folks, no, no, no. When it comes to sports, especially on the amateur level, because generally sports in Grenada is at the amateur level, we have to get serious. And I'm very passionate about this because I think we have been wasting a lot of time over the years. We have been wasting a lot of time, and it was, and basically our sportsmen and sportswomen who are suffering. Okay, our sportsmen and sportswomen who are suffering, and we need to do better than that. It's about just 60 minutes after the hour. My tag team and panel should be joining me soon, and they should be up, and we should be having a good discussion regarding sports and the attention sports is being given and things like that. So, and what you folks think about that. I think I've spoken enough about that, but certainly, we need to really, really do better. We need to hold the people, I should say, who are in positions at the national level in particular accountable. Okay, and we also calling on affiliates of various sporting organizations. I use football as an example, but in general, affiliates of sporting organizations should really, you know, hold the people that they put there accountable. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, there should be a process of recall. There should be a process of recall. You know, these days, most sporting organizations, like the GFA, for example, 4 years, and you want to tell me that someone is elected and after a few months not doing what he or she's supposed to do, and that person will be there for the next 4 years. Basically, as I indicated, not adding anything to the table, not pushing the agenda for the development of the sport. No, there must be a process of recall. And I think it should be a process where, and I mean, I'm not just saying because you don't like someone, you'll just try to recall it, but, you know, a process where the person, can be recalled. But, they all have their statutes, that's their constitution, and, in some instances, we don't know exactly what it is about. Let me go over to my friend Rudy and Sylvan in Toronto. And let me say good evening to you, Rudian. And as soon as yeah, I think I have him now. Good evening to you.
So how you doing?
I'm fine.
I hope you could hear me well. Forgive me for the I am in a meeting for the high school track and field championship next week, and it's kind of running a bit late. We're still in it, but I step out for a little bit. And
Okay, that's
yeah,
fine.
I just wanted to give my take, and then I could just I am listening to you, so I'm just going to give my take, and then I'm just going to head back in um to the meeting. My we have to know what we want as a people and as a nation. And there is question in between to ask. And yes, I am in Toronto, but folks in Grenada, when was the last time you have seen or heard from the Minister of Sports? Just ask yourself that question. I always say that sports is bring a nation together, bring a country together. We've seen it happen across the spectrum of the world, that sports really truly bring a country together. I remember when Grenada, if some people could remember, when Grenada was going through a rough time during the Olympics when Kirani won the gold. There was a few death at the time of murders, I may put it that way, murders happening in Grenada, and that just bring the people together, which is sports. No, yes, it's winning the gold medal, but it is sports, and that bring the country together. People was happy. There was a different atmosphere, and I think that our leaders to be, because in the next month or so we will have an election. We're going to have somebody new in the position What have we heard from them about the young people in sports, about sports in general? Sometimes we're always looking at the the specific sporting people, but sometimes we have to look at our leaders too. What are they doing? You cannot just show up when it's a major event or show up when somebody do good. And that's what we've seen from them. They have to be there. If you're in charge of sports, then you're in charge of sports across the globe, from the youngest child to the oldest who is involved. And you can't just show up at a certain time. That have to change. And I think that's what we need. And the people of Grenada in this election coming in to have a part to play. What question have you asked those who's running for a position? Have you asked any question to them about sports? Most people don't ask questions about absolutely nothing. They're just there for the ride and there for the togetherness. They don't ask no questions. So how do we move forward? We also have a part to play, and we come on this platform and we speak, but hoping that those in power could listen, and those in power can come in on this platform and tell us that we are wrong. This is what I'm doing, but we don't hear from them, and we don't see them, and they have been invited. Many of them have been invited to come on this platform and tell us, this is where they're going, this is what's happening, and then they choose not to show up. So where do we go from here, my Grenadian people? Where do we go? It is time for us to truly just take a step back and renew ourselves and renew our thoughts and renew our mind to say, hey, where can we go? How can we move forward? What can we do? Because sports to our young people, it's been 2 years, it's been 3 years of no sports. And I've seen the effect of it right here in Toronto, right here, the effect of no sports for the past few years. It's really bad and it's hurting. And it's bad. It's happy for them to come out. That's the first time they're having sports in 3 years. So it's good for them to come out and do certain things, but it's hurting them because they have been missing out. It's like a newborn baby. Some of them don't even know what they're doing. That's how bad it is. And that's the same thing home. Yes, the rest of the world was doing something. The rest of the world was active. The rest of the world was taking in part, but yet, some other countries wasn't getting involved in doing certain things. Now you come back again where I'm so impressed, and I say it all the time. Some islands in the Caribbean, not all, but some of the smaller islands should never be ahead of Grenada in anything. We should be ahead of them in every single aspect of politics or the development of a country. Grenada should be ahead of them, but we're not no more. We're no longer ahead. We're behind. That
Okay.
St. Vincent could be able to
I was
bless
about to
the
ask.
athletes.
I was about
That
to
St.
ask you about
Vincent,
the St.
yeah,
Vincent issue. You know.
yeah, that St. Vincent could bless the athletes. And that's the second time St. Vincent is showing up on us. They did it with netball when Grenada chose not to send a team and St. Vincent won. And now again, here they do it again, showing up that they send the athletes. And this was probably the best character games in terms of medals coming back to Grenada that we ever had. And have you seen or heard anything from that after that? Nothing. But here you have St. Vincent giving even athletes who didn't even bring home a medal, but they represent their country. They also get a financial blessing that could do something for them and their family. We have to take, we don't need to take a page from them, but we need to have programs that can help our athletes, that can support our athletes. And it goes from the businessmen out there and the businesswomen. It goes from the Ministry of Sports. It also goes through the government. They have to be able to look at our young athletes and said, I want to help, I want to support, and this is what we can do. Yes, and we have to speak it. We can say, we can talk and talk and they wouldn't do nothing. Then guess what? In a month or so, there is a poll. There's an election. Get rid of them and put people in there that you believe that can do the job. And then you have to speak up. We, as Grenadian, man, I sometimes I wish I was home that I can speak up. People may not like what I have to say, but I will say what it is because they don't look into it to see the truth. Everybody is focused on, I'm an NMP or I'm an NDC, and that's what it is. They don't care who the person is or what they have done or their record or what they want to do. If you ask any one of them, what is the plan for Grenada, they can't tell you, because all that they're about is having some party and gathering up now. And this is not what it is about. We as a nation, we come too far in everything aspect in terms of development of our country, including sports. And right now we are going backwards. and other countries is moving forward and creeping ahead of us, and we are just standing still or moving backwards. And it's time for a change. And that's what I want to see. It's really hurtful. So when you hear the passion that I'm speaking, it's because it hurts. As a Grenadian, it really hurt to see us in where we are. And some is doing the best. Don't get me wrong. There are some of them in the position. Soccer is doing a wonderful job. Yes, the result is not there yet, but it's coming. The results will come. But at least we have a team out there. We have the girls. They get 20 goals from the United States. But guess what? We're not going to quit. And that shouldn't allow them not to fight. And one day we're going to get there. One day, but we have to strike.
When the United States started, they used to get 15
Yeah,
and
they
20
get
a
beat up too.
day.
Every country start up that way.
Yeah, they
Every
started
country start up that way where
some
they,
level. Yeah.
yeah,
But you know, the thing about it is that we need people who one who are serious about, and I talk about it in the introduction, who are serious in terms of when they put themselves up for office,
position
especially sports,
for the office.
sports,
Yeah,
sports administrators in particular.
yeah, yeah.
But on the other hand, the affiliates themselves need to be more proactive and be able to hold these persons, the various administrators accountable,
Yes.
and they must not be allowed a free hand and you're just complaining. And
And
and that's why
it's
I'm
funny you
saying
said
what
that.
I was saying that
I
there
asked the
must be a process.
question
There must be a process
process. Yeah,
of recall. If
yeah,
you're not satisfied,
yeah,
then because they have representatives, so whether it's parish representative or whoever, if you're not satisfied with the person who have elected to serve on your behalf or your constituent in terms of sports, football, then and our conversation might use football because they have an election coming up,
yeah.
but it involves whether
All
it's track and
sports,
field,
all
netball,
sports.
whatever.
Yeah,
Because just one final point on that, I'm saying that too because you may have joined the program a bit late too. When I say join, too many people putting themselves up for sports administrators out of egos, settling egos, personal grudges.
yeah,
You want to be the president because you felt that you were slighted, by the former president. You know, um, these sort of things. You were the
yeah.
former general secretary, and because you were fired, for example, you believe, you know, you should be the president. These sort of things. Too many grudges, and people are not putting themselves up with a genuine concern to develop the sport, but more out of what position I can hold and my ego to settle egos, personal egos. Yeah, too many of that. We have too many of that, and I mean, I wouldn't call names, but
Yeah.
I'm certain if some of them listening, they'll feel slighted by that because they go in there just to settle their ego. They was dissatisfied. They felt because they didn't get the job of the coach or the coach or the manager, or they were not given the position to travel with the team. All these sorts of things. And I think what needs to happen is that the affiliates need to do a better job of one selecting and two voting for the people who believe. There are people who will put themselves up, and
But let's use
you
this,
can
right?
tell them no.
Let's use this for an example. We look at soccer, we look at basketball, we look at hockey, and some of the sports. I know some of them don't watch it, but we seen it big out here. Coaches last 1 year. They come in. I'm seeing it in college sports right now. They are getting fired after 1 year because of performance. They have been gone because of performance. But yet, we don't see it fit to do the same thing for our people. We don't see it fit to do certain things for our people. We have to be able to have people accountable for everything that happened who take a position. This is when you are a representative of, like, for example, the Minister of Sports. I'm using him for an example. You're not the Minister of Sports for one set of party or one set of people. You are the Minister of Sports for every Grenadian. And that is the issue that they really have to know. When you're a minister of something, you're the minister of the people of Grenada, not specific people. So we have to be able to understand that and put that in a position where when someone is not doing what they're supposed to do, we need to get rid of them and put people who wants to do the job, who are passionate for the job and want to see the country move forward. Some of them they do not, they just want a position. It looks good
Yeah.
on the resume, and
Well,
that's what it
well,
is.
well. I can tell you, for example. I mean, I don't believe that I am the authority on sports. So
Yeah,
if I ask someone, if I invite someone rather to be on the program and they refuse or they say no, I'm not slighted by that. I
nah,
mean,
you can't
to be
feel no
honest,
way about it. It's
yeah,
just
I'm telling you that. But
what I
I
like about the
the
platform,
thing about
what I like about your platform, you are in the United States, and your platform is not only for Americans.
yeah, well,
Your
I was
platform is for
right,
everyone. So when they
right.
come on, they are giving information to myself who's in Canada, to those who are in the United States, and those who's in other countries.
Well,
They're not only, you get what I'm saying? So that's
I
what
was
it is.
saying that I was building the point to say that I get more. I'm 100% Grenadian. I live in the United States, but I consider myself 100% Grenadian. I do not, for once, deny the fact that I am a Grenadian.
Never
Even
want
in
that.
my even in my course of work, I come across people on a daily basis, and because of my accent, they
Yeah,
will ask me
where
which
you from?
part of the Caribbean. Yeah, and they know they will say a Caribbean accent, albeit sometimes they mix it up with the Virgin Islands, things like that. So, and I will I will say Grenada, okay, and I will ask the next question. I'll ask, do you know where Grenada is? I mean, I use, you know, I I can tell you that to the fact that not too long ago I was in the lobby of the hotel where I am, and I was speaking to someone, and they asked me the same question, and I said Grenada, and the question was, and my question follow up was, do you know where Grenada is? And the guy was like, isn't it somewhere close to Barbados? I say, bingo, right. I say,
Now
but it's not.
I was
But
watching
I said it's not Barbados, but it's close
yeah,
to Barbados. And I went further, nice beaches, etc., etc. And
yeah, yeah.
I even go as far as saying, if you want, there are times seasonal. There are direct flights from Charlotte to Grenada. I mean, I'm giving him the information,
Information,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm saying that to say that the platform I'm using here, I try to accommodate as many Grenadians as possible. But here's the thing about it, Rudian. Do you know that I get more support and cooperation from non-Grenadians? For example,
Yep, yep,
I have
without a
been
doubt.
able to I have been able to speak to the Minister of Sports for the Bahamas, who
Yep,
should be on the program, but it's just a matter of scheduling. But he has agreed to be on the program to talk, okay, on the program. The Minister of Sports for Jamaica told me as soon as because she's all over the place,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
England, the the USA, because they're on a blitz for the 60th anniversary, etc. She will be on the program. I have, when that program just started, I've made approaches to the sports minister in Grenada.
Yep.
And once I was told that the minister is not ready yet. And the second time I was told not interested. That's
Done.
that's it.
And not only that too,
I will see that.
you went as far as bringing the people from Australia.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
You know
and
what
I'm
I'm
saying that to say
saying?
that it's all about the interest and whether people. I mean, I ask so many, whether it's so Courtney Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, whatever field in, journalists from all
Let me put my
over
camera on for 1 second.
Spain,
I'm still on. I'll just
you
put my
know,
camera on. Yeah.
yeah, all sorts of things, and that is what I'm saying, that you know we need people who we can hold accountable. And again, I'm saying, if the minister's right, they do not have to accept, the invitation. Okay. The same thing with the football. I have asked people who, well, one of the team who putting themselves up for office for the football. And strange enough, one side, I mean, for the same team, I was, said, "Oh, that's not a problem, man. That's not a problem. I really like to be on the program." So I said, "You know something? Let me just ask someone again who I believe on the team." And I asked, and the response was, "Unfortunately, we're not prepared to come on the program." And I was like, "Okay, thanks very much." And then I went back to the person who told me that, that should not be a problem. And they were a bit disappointed, but they say it's probably a mistake they made, and I hope that they may
Yeah.
change their mind sooner or later. Before, let me just say good evening to some folks here. Gordon, Bonnie, Julian, good evening to you. Alana John, good evening, tuning in while on the road to Kansas. Okay, I think there is something happening there this weekend. Yeah, I know, track and field. Bish, good night to you. Good night, Bish. And John Otley, as usual, good night as always. And they could send a representative. Yes, Gordon, but again, I'm saying it's not that they have to. I'm just making the request, and I'm just saying that in the final analysis, the I made the attempt. Okay, so if the others come on, they cannot claim that I am biased because
You're biased. Yeah.
yeah, I invited them as well.
Well, I have to run back in the meeting.
Yeah, no
I am
problem with that.
listening. I am
Yeah,
listening to you. It's
yeah,
just that I won't be able to be on like this, but I am fully listening with you. All right.
yeah.
So
Okay then.
we'll
Yeah,
talk. Yeah.
no problem.
Like,
Yeah,
and I
so
can
that's
type something in there too while we're there too. So we're
certainly,
looking for
certainly.
that. Yeah.
All right then. Okay. So folks, that's Rudian. But let me add. Let me get our good friend from Karaku, Trevor McIntosh, who has been waiting and probably will want to add something. Good evening to you, Trevor.
Good evening,
I'm
Michael.
yeah,
Good
I'm
evening,
certain
viewers.
right, and I'm certain you have been listening and hearing and
Yeah, yeah,
right.
very
So
interesting.
right, yeah. So my discussion centered around, with a pending general elections, not just national elections, but also football,
Yeah,
right? But the theme, the focus had to do with the the lack of a sports agenda, or a discussion on sport on the platform of the political party. Okay,
yeah,
they may have, but um, certainly we're not hearing much about what they have to offer regarding sports. And knowing for a fact that we come in post COVID,
yeah,
and it has to do a lot with the young people in particular, and
yeah,
there has the fear that the post COVID, things can happen with our young people who need to channel their energies, etc., etc. And sports is one form, I believe, that we can have activities. And by the way, sports doesn't necessarily mean competitive sports, right?
no,
Yes. So we
participation.
have physical education, we have various things, okay? But the point is, we're not hearing the position of the political party, what it is they have regarding sports. I mean, sports may be a small percentage or a small constituency in terms of the bigger scale of things regarding agriculture, tourism, etc., etc. But, and I'm saying but, you always know that sports coexist, whether it's agriculture, whether it's tourism, whether it's with education. Because if it's with young people, we know education and sports. If it's with culture, we know culture and sports. You know, tourism, sports tourism, etc. So, why it is, and what is your, you know, your views, I should say, regarding,
You just mentioned something there, Michael, where
yeah,
um, sports is a culture, sports is tourism. You could use sports for many things, but I don't know why some of these governments are reluctant to use sports in such a way, as Meridian said earlier, to lift the nation. Now, I don't even know who the sports minister is. I've never met them. I've never even been invited to a seminar that they will put together, to find out our views on sports in Grenada to take it forward. You take, for instance, we've got an athletic stadium named after our best athlete ever in the world, on the world stage, and yet still, is there a program going on in that stadium for our top athletes? I would say no, there isn't. And I would like to know how Karani feels about that, with a stadium named after him, yet still there's no program. I don't know what the Ministry of Sports do, but they should be looking at all our top athletes within the country from whatever age group, whether if it's grassroots all the way up, to make sure that there is a program at that stadium. And I say again, yes, the government can't do it all, but the sports minister should be making sure that that actually happens. Even the permanent secretary of sports should be making sure that happens.
Well, they can say yes and no, because they, a lot of fingers could be pointing in terms of, well, we leave that up to the athletic association, we leave that up to the, various. But again, it's about.
I did say the government can't do it all.
Yeah, but it's about the governance of sport, right? And ensuring, and even if they're not doing it, there can be some program, that on a national level that either the ministry can initiate or the ministry can, correlate with, And I think that is the issue regarding sports and sports development, the role of the ministry. Now, at the start of the program, I also spoke about the sports policy, where we had a sports policy, but it's just a matter of the implementation. And I know for a fact that they had the issue of, rewards and incentives, and the whole reorganizing of the Ministry of Sports in particular, and put the running of sports at the level of the parishes and the sports councils and things like that. So, and leave the ministry to deal with just the whole issue, the policies and et cetera, and parish councillors and sports council and things can run sports. I know that was part of the whole reorganizing of the Ministry of Sports, but again, I'm saying the sports policy was never implemented. I know there were some issues regarding it, and there was also the issue of money, etc. But there were aspects of the sports policy that didn't really need any money, things like that. So, but that again, I'm saying is why I think our political parties should basically let us know. And when I say us, people who have an interest in sports, what are their plans for the development of sports going forward? What is the sports policy or the sports, the platform on sports as it relates to that? Our young people are yearning for direction, and what is the authorities doing to ensure that there are guidelines even for, the development?
Well, since I arrived in Grenada on a whole, and I've been around most of Grenada, and even in Carriacou here, and the amount of young, talented children that I have seen walking around Grenada and in Carriacou, and they're begging for something to happen. But at the end of the day, who's there to help them to get to where they're going? There isn't much help at all in helping them, and that's where I think, some of the people who are sitting in these seats need to really take a look at themselves and see what are they really investing in our talented youngsters.
Well, see, Mike Batiste is saying that they forced poor athletes from small clubs to pay to train at the stadium, and police have been called, and he put it in all caps, hauled to throw them out in recent times. Well, I've heard stories of
Do you know what,
police.
Michael? Do you know what, Michael? I was in Grenada last weekend, and I was told the same thing because I brought up this matter of what we're discussing here tonight, and I was told that. I'm serious.
Okay.
I was told on Saturday, and I think it's wrong.
I mean, if
Because
athletes are going to the stadium to train, and then police are being called in to get them out, I think there is some, misunderstanding of what it is. I mean, I'm certainly not, it's not a break-in. I'm
no,
certainly not a break-in. And if the athletes are on the track training, even if it means that they need some level of supervision or something like that,
yeah,
to call the police in to get them out of the stadium. Athletes who are training, not people who are just relaxing there, or homeless folks that are sleeping in the
yeah,
stadium, but athletes who go there to train, and most times they go there to train for a period because I'm certain they probably there with their coaches, etc., etc. And if that is what we're hearing is true, I think there needs to be some sort of inquiry into what is really going on with the stadium and the availability of the stadium for our athletes to train.
yeah. Because that
Yeah.
that poor young girl or young boy that is probably going there to train with their coach. How do we not know that's the next world champion or Olympic champion that we're throwing out the stadium, or we're taking them to arresting them at a police station?
Yeah, it's kind of sad. But Trevor, let me get your views now on the GFA elections, the upcoming elections, scheduled for I think the 11th or the 12th of June. I think it's the 11th. You, you are not affiliate. Your club is not an affiliated yet, no?
No,
Oh,
no,
it's not
it's
an
not.
affiliated yet.
No,
Okay.
we
So your
started.
application is still pending.
Yeah, we started our process from since 2020. Yes, and hopefully, come June the 11th or thereafter, we should hopefully get our membership, which I think personally would be a great achievement for Hillsborough Town Football Club to actually be playing in the leagues in Grenada. It'd be a massive achievement for the people of and the residents and the community of Carriacou and even the players
Mhm.
if we are to achieve that.
Okay, well, good to hear that. But what you, well, I mean, without getting into any of the specifics, because you're not an affiliate, but um, what is your hope in terms of football and the way forward for football in the post June 11th period?
Well, don't forget that I was once in there sitting there as the technical director. And I've got to honestly say to myself that um, it's a difficult situation because, to be quite honest with you, as you said earlier, and you stated the fact that what I found that there were people sitting in there that were literally bringing grudges, because they weren't selected for that post or this other person was selected for that post instead of them, which I think it doesn't matter. Even if you're not selected for something, you should still look to support it just for the genuine interest of for football and our young children. Instead you take it to make it personal. And that's been going on too long. And it's been a hindrance for the GFA stroke itself. It's a hindrance. I walk along Grenada, I walk along in Carriacou, and that's all I hear. Oh, GFA, I don't want nothing to do with them people. All them people inside there are such and such. Which it shouldn't be like that. So they have to now find a union between the FA and the general public to bring it all together. So I hope this coming election would be something where they can now sit upon, that people there can now pick and choose the right people to sit on this executive board to actually take football in the right direction. Because as someone was relating earlier, yes, we have made magnificent strides in qualifying for Gold Cup. But what I want to honestly see is, where is the grassroots programs? We need our under 13s to be playing on a Saturday morning in St. George's, in St. Mark's, in St. John's, in St. Andrews, on a Saturday morning,
including Carriacou.
I'm never going to leave out Carriacou, and participating, but we don't have that. Instead, what we find on a Saturday morning are coaches coaching our young children. Yes, there's certain time you can coach kids, but it's, where are they going to learn and compete amongst each other? We do not have that. We're waiting till they get to 15 years of age to start competing amongst themselves, which I think is just totally wrong. Totally wrong. Our kids should be on a Saturday morning, in a five-a-side league, playing against each other on a regular basis.
Yeah, I told someone that the success of the U.S., especially the women's team, and the U.S. football, Canada to an extent, had to do with what you're saying there. For example, and I can say I will go at Icahn Stadium in New York, and I just using New York is not a football city per se, right? There are other cities that have a lot of football, and the Icahn Stadium, the outside of the Icahn Stadium is basically like a football field. And you will see hundreds of kids there on a Saturday or on a Sunday for practically the entire day with their parents as well, playing football. So they have their vests and they're playing what it is, leagues, and, they play a game, they rest, and then another team come on, and that is what happening.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the young kids. What they're doing is getting them to like the sport.
That's right.
And learning how to be competitive, etc.
Absolutely.
They will reach a stage where they go into the coaching aspect, etc., etc. But just getting those little kids out there. You're seeing 7 and 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds just kicking balls, and playing different, in various leagues and things like that. And I think
I know growing up in England, in my house, my parents found it very difficult to keep me at home on a Saturday. Very difficult, because there was a field across the road, not across the road from where we live, and within that field, there would be about hundreds of kids along with their parents playing. We'll kick off from about 10 o'clock. And our area, we had a little team and we had a coach, and he will take us there on a Saturday. And then on a Sunday, just further down the road, was another league going on. And a lot of the top footballers in Europe and in the UK, that's where we learned our craft. I remember when I wrote the program and I handed it in to the general secretary at the time, and he told me, sorry, we can't do that. That's too expensive.
That's Grenada Football Association?
Yes. That's what the general secretary at the time said. It is too expensive.
And when you say too expensive, what was the interpretation? What he meant by too expensive? And you're talking about the then general secretary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is meant by too expensive?
You'd have to ask him.
But what was your interpretation then of it being too expensive?
I literally had to laugh, because what I saw and what I tried to say to him at the time, look, all you've got to do is say, right, you've got St. George's. St. George's is a big parish. All you got to designate is an area in St. George's where you can mark out 4 to 5 pitches. right? And all the young kids in St. George's that go to all these academies, you know, even a school a primary school could enter teams, you know, and let them play. You know, St. Andrews is a big parish. You can also do the same. You know, St. Patrick's is a big parish. You could do the same. St. Mark's and St. John's, they're small, so they can join up and go to a designated place. You also know St. David's is small, so St. David's could join St. Andrews, and that's what I wrote. All they had to do at the time was supply the goals for the leagues and bulls. That was it. Didn't have to do anything else, because the people within the parishes would run the leagues, because the coaches amongst themselves would learn to become referees. You know, all your young referees that you're getting to come through the school of refereeing, they then go and start refereeing at these games, because it's 5-a-side, you know, 15, 20 minutes each way. And these and the young children are getting two games a week, every time they turn up on a Saturday. You know, and as we were saying earlier, all the parents turn up, and the bragging rights are there to be seen on a Monday morning between the young kids. You see the parents on the sidelines, they become more you know, excited more than the young children, because they're getting involved also. By doing that now, when there's an international match being played at the stadium between Grenada and whoever, all these parents will be coming to watch along with their children. That was the holistic idea of what I was trying to do. You know, so instead of getting 3,000 people in the stadium, you're looking at about near capacity, because you're involving now the young children in a league in their various parishes where they're learning to learn the game, and then they get excited because they now want to go and see the seniors play.
But isn't that grassroots in itself? Isn't that
Yes,
grassroots?
that's it.
And is it that FIFA through the national associations do put money in, or funds, I should say, I say money, but funds towards grassroots programs like what you're talking about?
Well, it's how you execute it. It's how you execute it. You know, I as I said, I was in Grenada on the weekend, and I sat and watched an academy down there, and the kids are training. They're learning all their skills, but where do they go and play? There's nothing. I know people can turn around and say, "Oh, we're going to do an under-13s tournament," but come on, man. What are they going to learn in 3 weeks and 4 weeks? These kids need to be going and playing in a league that lasts all 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to turn around and say, "Oh, what about cricket season? What about this season?" Let's be honest.
All right.
Let's be honest.
Well, affiliates, unfortunately, are not, but hopefully that affiliates who are ensuring that they put people there to govern sports are putting the right people, and ensure that you're not putting people who, as we say, have grudges, have egos, you know, their personal egos that they want to satisfy.
Yeah.
And
And I'll be honest with you. There are, me personally, and some people might take it the wrong way, but a lot of people know me within the FA that I'm a very straightforward guy. And when I arrived in Grenada was only for the best for football. But I found some people sitting on that executive board as deadweights. I'm going to be very honest.
yeah, well, I said something similar to that, and
I'm going to be honest.
they do not bring anything to the table. I
No,
mean,
they don't.
yeah, they don't
They
bring
don't.
anything to the table.
Because at the
Unfortunately,
end of the day, they don't seem to realize that football is a multi-million.
no, let's say a billion dollar industry.
Industry. You know,
Yeah,
it's not just for your friend. Let's be honest. It's not just for your friend. And a lot of them don't realize that, you know, when I was working in Australia, most of the executive members within your small clubs were all businessmen because they want to see that small club grow. You know, but instead we find I don't know if people just think it's a hobby.
Well, let's see what's happening. I'm hoping to have the incumbent um, on the program sometime. I have asked others who are contesting the election based on what I have seen, and they have declined.
Yeah.
I have no problems with that. So
Because you think
uh,
about it, how long has the GFA been running?
how long you mean the
How
Grenada
long they
Football
been?
Association?
How long they been in existence? I think it's
Well,
coming up. I think they're
I
coming up
think it's
to
coming to
100
90.
years.
Well, something like that, 90 plus, whatever it is. Yeah, it could be.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite a while
And
now.
and yet still we don't even have a semi-professional league yet.
Well, that is debatable. That could be so, but how do you, the, the,
Yeah.
the, the argument could be how do you sustain a semi-professional league in Grenada?
Well,
That could be another argument. But
if an island the size of Isle of Wight in England off, they can have a semi-professional league going on. So could we.
well, again, I'm saying it's debatable, and there will be pros and cons in terms of whether or not it's something
It,
that is sustainable.
it
Um,
depends on who's sitting on the executive boards that's really
well,
seeing the vision.
that's true, but again, it could boil down to the dollars and cents. But it's debatable, and it's something probably we can talk about another time regarding whether or not we are ready for the big league, as we should say, not just a semi-professional league in football, but professional producing professional sportsmen and sportswomen.
That's
You
what we
know,
need.
yeah,
Gre-
producing more professional.
Grenada has the talent and the ability here with these
Yeah,
young children. You know,
yeah.
well, you know what we've achieved in Carriacou with one of our athletes. You know,
Mhm.
and there's many more sitting at home that could be achieving.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying we're not short of talents, but it's
No,
how do we harness that to
yeah,
ensure that we can
these
we can
young kids,
maximize on it.
they just need hope. Someone to give them some hope, and they'll go out and produce the goods.
Yeah, certainly not the jokers though.
No,
Serious people.
serious
Thanks
people.
very much. Thank you, Trevor. Always a pleasure being on the program. I thank you for being on the program.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very much.
having me.
I appreciate it. Okay then. Yeah. So folks, as you heard there, that's Trevor McIntosh live from Hillsborough, Carriacou on our program this evening. Earlier you had Rudy and Sylvan, who joined us from um, Toronto, Canada. He was remote because he attended another meeting. But and thanks to all those who, Mike and Roger Duncan, thank you very much. And you know, Mike Batiste and Peter Bishop, Alana, John, the mother of Nazio. And I know that I think this weekend we have track and field with our college athletes in JCAA. I think we do have. Um, so um, yeah, so we should be having some, hopefully some good results on the weekend, early next week, when our athletes, especially the junior colleges, get into action, right? Thank you again, folks. It's our monthly open discussion, and I'm really hoping that probably between now and the general elections, we will have some sort of discussion. And when I say we will hear, it doesn't necessarily have to be on this program, but we will hear something regarding sports and what the political parties are bringing forth regarding sports. You know, what has happened to our national sports policy? What is the timeline for an implementation of a national sports policy, for example? And we need to hold these people accountable, right? What we need to do, and I'm talking about you voters, okay? You need to hold these people accountable. If they tell you that in the first 90 days that they will do such and such and such. Please, you know, not in the next 5 years. You know, if after 90 days they cannot, they should be able to come back and tell you why they have not been able to do it and how they plan to do it and timelines again. Okay, but you have to hold them accountable because that is what is happening. What we see is that every 5 years we see something start or we hear promises, and then it's another 5 years, it's a cycle, and nothing really happens when it comes to serious in terms of sports. Look, for example, the light for the cricket stadium. I mean, every everyone in the Caribbean now building something and having lights, and our national cricket stadium still, or even though we're getting all these kudos about the beauty of the stadium, the location, blah blah blah, and we still cannot put lights at the stadium. What is the? I mean, come on. I mean, somebody has to say something. What is the problem? We have been hearing over and over about funding secure. It should be started soon. Blah blah blah. And no one seems to be, being held accountable for these things. You know, I just use that as an example. The light at it, but I think with the light at the cricket stadium will enhance Grenada's ability to host more international matches, especially the T20, CPL, etc., etc. That's I mean I don't know, but again, folks, you are on the ground. You are the people that should be holding these people accountable. Okay, you need to start holding people accountable, and even our sports administrators need to be held accountable. They get away with too many things, and people just say, let me give it a chance again, and hold them accountable. They go in there to steer the development of sports, the respective sporting disciplines. And after a few months, a few weeks sometimes, all hell breaks loose. All sorts of confusion and things like that. So, and back and forth, and they can sit down and discuss issues and come to consensus and things like that, and who's against who and who's this and who's that. No, 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 we don't need that in sports, people. No, we don't need that in sports, unfortunately. Yeah. Thanks very much once again, folks. Hopefully our next program, I'm saying our next program could be in New York, and then could be back here in North Carolina later on in the year. But thank you very much for being part of our program, and hope to see you next week, God's willing, for another program. I really enjoyed, being with you. Oh, Gordon, thank you once again. You are the first person on. That's Gordon Woody Juliet. Thank you very much. Gordon, Roger, Rudian, Mike Batiste, John Otley, Peter Bishop, Alana, John, all of you. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you on my program. And, we'll chat another time. Thank you very much for being on the program, and have a pleasant rest of the week and weekend.